In the final part of the course management and decade golf series, I'm going to talk about short game. Understanding how we can break the course down will help approach shots, it'll help lower scoring, but it'll also help you practice more effectively. To keep things really simple, I'm just going to use one club that I would typically use around the green the most, but as we go forward, you'll understand how this can vary depending on the club you use. So how we're going to look at short game is we're going to categorise it from a 0, 1, 2 or 3 miss. Now those numbers are going to be individualised to you based on your playing level and your short game ability. So I want you to think of this really simply. If you used to have a 0 miss, so you hit an approach shot and the ball was to finish around the green with a 0 miss, that means you can get the ball pretty much up and down 95% of the time. Now to do that well and consistently regardless of your playing level, realistically we're going to need a putter in hand because that's where we've got the most control. So the only way that's going to be reliable is if we're on some fringe grass. So if we was just, say, on the front of a green, we've got a little bit of fringe where the ball's not going to roll away and we can consistently putt like it's for a green, we know that's a 0 miss. So that's often comes with front or back flags. Then I want you to think of a 1 miss. Now I'm going to relate this to myself. A 1 miss is going to be 5 foot or in. So I'm going to create, if I had a 5 foot window roughly around the hole, a circle, I would be majority of the time be able to chip that ball with inside that circle. That's going to be a 1 miss for me. If I go to a 2 miss, I'm going to then move to 8 foot and in. So exact same thing, we've got a circle around the pin, and from 8 foot and in, I can consistently chip the ball. Then that's going to mean that the lie gets a little bit harder, or maybe I've got less green to work with. And then a 3 miss is going to be about a 10 or 11 foot, maybe a little bit wider, and that's where we're thinking of, if we can just get it inside a 12 foot window where we're not so far away that we're bringing 3 putt in, but we are more often than not 2 putt in, then that's okay. And that's going to be if we're short-sided, that's going to be if we're in a tough lie. So if you think of each pin position with your approach shot, is if I was to miss on the short side, so if the pin's on the left and I'm to miss the pin left as well, how difficult would my short game shot be based on my course knowledge and my ability? If it's a 1, then you're going to aim a little bit further away, and just go simple and aim 1 yard further left of the pin. So you're aiming further away of the flag depending on how far you've got in. 2 and 3 is the same principle. But if you think about this logically, the harder the miss, the further you aim away from the flag. And some people would see that as defensive, but we're trying to play with those shot patterns as we've identified with the tee shots and the approach shots, and we're trying to remove the big score. Sometimes you're going to just leave yourself with a short game shot that's a 3, and sometimes you can't really help that. And that's normally going to happen when you're coming in with a lot of club, or you misjudge the pin location or not knowing the golf course. And this is why obviously the more homework we do, the more we practice, the more we can learn what a 1, 2 and 3 miss is. Let's look at that in action. So I'm going to go through what I would class as a 1 miss. So as you can see, I've drawn a 5 foot circle roughly. So anything that finishes inside that, to me that is a 1 miss. So I need to think of a short game shot that typically I'd be able to consistently get into there. So if with these balls, as you can see, I'm in the fringe grass, I've got plenty of green to work with, and I've not got loads of difficulty with the type of shot. So I know I can play quite a basic shot with a variety of clubs that I would feel pretty confident of getting inside that 5 foot range. So there I've nearly holed it. And when you actually look at that 5 foot circle, you can quite easily say, or feel like that takes a lot of pressure off, because I'm not trying to get them as close as that, or should I say I'm not expecting to as such, but I am expecting to, at the very least, get inside that 5 foot window, even if I don't hit a good shot. And that's important because as my short game gets better, I will automatically want to bring that 5 foot window now into a 3 foot window. And that then means when I'm more aggressive to flags, or when I choose my target with approach shots, I can think about that slightly differently. So now I'm going to move on to my 2 miss. Now I've done an 8 foot window, and that's quite a large window when you actually look at that from a greenside chip. Now from that 1 miss, what would be more difficult, where getting it consistently inside 5 foot, what would change? And fundamentally what would change is the lie. okay? Because I'm going to have less consistent lies. So if I just chuck a ball here into this type of rough, you can see how we've got all different lies, and we won't be in control of that. So straight away, I know that getting inside that 8-foot window becomes a little bit harder. I know that I might have to use a variety of clubs depending on the lie, but at the same time, I've still got plenty of green to work with, which makes this shot that little bit easier. Where I go to this lie, completely different to the last one, which you're going to get that variability in rough. And you just play that a little bit different. And then I go to this one, which is completely buried, which I'd probably actually want to use more of a lob wedge, but I'd be still quite confident in getting it quite close because I've got green to work with. And there's an example. That one's come out really hot, wrong club, but that's why it's a 2 miss and not a 1 miss. And now we look at a 3 miss. Now this is going to always be the biggest dispersion zone that I'm looking at for a short game. I've gone to 10 foot here, and 10 foot plus in some respects. And what I want you to think of, that is really more just trying to get down in 3 or less. So it's basically trying to remove the 4 shots, which would typically be a double bogey. Now the reason this is going to be a tough shot is because it would typically be a short-sided miss. So if we imagine the pins on the edge of a green, whichever side that is, a short-sided miss would be the same side, and that means we'd probably have some danger in the way. So with this as an example, if I was to go at that flag and I was to push it, especially if I was coming in from quite a lot of distance, where I could easily catch this slope and it runs down here, I've got some tough lies straight away, so that could go into the rough, a bare lie, but I've also landed on a downslope. So I know this shot, for example, I've got to go aerial, and I'm going to have to land it almost on a downslope. I might even try and bump it in. Now the quality of this shot, if I look at this and I go, right, I'm going to have no choice but to try and land this a little bit lower and hope it runs down, I'm relying on luck. And I've just about got that in, I can 2-putt from there. But I'm relying on a bit of luck because I'm in trouble. It's the same with this. If I go now in the rough, this shot is almost impossible because at least I could control strike there. I've got to almost go aerial but land it on the top and hope I get a good enough strike. And there's a perfect example. Don't hit it properly, lands on the downslope, you bring double bogey into the equation. So understanding how the different type of misses plays a big role in where you want to be aiming with your approach shot is super important, but it also means that we can practice those shots more. So for example, would I want to spend lots of time practicing this type of shot? No, because fundamentally the course management, we want to avoid this type of shot. We can do that with better strategy, but then on top of that, we don't want to be spending a lot of time trying to create a worldy type golf shot around the greens when we can learn to get more consistent at just the basic shot. So it's, instead of being really good at the aerial shot here, I would be thinking, right, that could be the special shot, but the easy shot, if I've got that consistency with the bump and run, would just be thinking, okay, let's make solid contact and let's just try and get it inside 10 to 12 foot, walk off with no more than a bogey. If you found this video tips useful and you've watched the whole series, then you know that getting longer is going to be the biggest benefit to you. If you want to know how to do that, watch this video next.